Hi everyone, my name's Jeanie Sumrall-Ajero from Kaleidoscope Collections, and I'm really glad to be here today. I'm so excited to show you the project we're going to be working on today. I have this wonderful page of my nephew with his mom, and I know that kaleidoscopes look really complicated, but they're really quite easy with the technique that I'm going to be showing you. They're all really simple, and I'm going to show you how. Let's get started. To make our kaleidoscope, we're going to be using Kaleidoscope Creator 2.0. It's a great software program which makes it really easy to make kaleidoscopes. When you first start Kaleidoscope Creator, you're going to see the screen with a wedge on it, but it looks pretty boring right now because we don't have any photos open. So let's go and open up a photo. I click on the Open Image button. Now you can open up any digital image. There are a few photos on the product CD, but you can also use your own photos. They can be photos from your digital camera, from your scanner. They can even be scanned artwork. Today, I'm going to be using a photo of my sister and my nephew. I'm going to just double click on that to open it up. And you can see it here now open on the screen. I want to show you one other feature of our work area. If we move up to the right-hand corner of our screen, you can see the thumbnail preview. That shows you what the kaleidoscope is going to look like, and it also tells you what the shape is going to be. Now the cool thing about Kaleidoscope Creator 2.0 is that you can position your photo to fit whatever portion you want exactly inside that wedge. In order to do that, we're going to move the photo around, and the template shape, that wedge, is going to remain stationary on the screen. If we want to make the photo a little bit bigger or smaller, we click on the corner, just click and drag with your mouse, and you'll see that I'm resizing it. You can also click and drag on the photo itself and move it around. And what I'm trying to do is fit my sister and nephew right inside this wedge. Now if you want to see a larger version of the kaleidoscope, you just click on the preview button, and here you can see a beautiful kaleidoscope. This is what we're going to use for the main element on our page. But of course we have to print it first. So we're going to click on the OK button and then go up to the File menu in our menu bar. So we're going to click on File and then Print Kaleidoscope, and here you'll see our Print Kaleidoscope dialog box. This is where you get to specify what size you want to print. We're going to print for this page a 7¼ inch kaleidoscope, 7.25 inches. We don't want to print any margins in this case, and I like to click off the center kaleidoscope because it just saves a little bit of paper. Then you simply click OK, and it brings up your printer dialog box. At this point, you want to go put your photo paper in your printer, set the printer properties to print on that photo paper, and click OK. So now that's printing, we're going to go make the second element of our page. And that is the kaleidoscope that we're going to use in the center hole of that main kaleidoscope. We're going to change the shape of the kaleidoscope, and to do that we go up to the toolbar and click on the Change Kaleidoscope Shape button. That brings up our shape selector, and as you can see there's lots of choices here, but what we're going to use is a 16 segment circle. You know the number of segments by the number by the name, and they're all alphabetical. Just double click on that and you'll see that your wedge shape changes on your screen. Now what we're doing is making an embellishment kaleidoscope, something that matches the main kaleidoscope that we've created. And I want to go in and zoom in on these flowers that we've got in the background. So to do that, I obviously have to make the photo a lot larger to fit inside that wedge. Just click and drag, and you can see how large that frame is getting. And then outside the boundary of the photo, we're over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to click and drag. And now I'm going to just move, I'm clicking on the photo itself, that moves it over. And I'm trying to get the flowers centered inside the wedge. Again, if you want to see the full screen preview, click on the preview button. And I think that kaleidoscope looks pretty good. So that's the kaleidoscope we're going to use. I'm going to click on OK, and again, go to Print Kaleidoscope. Now for our third element, we're going to do something really cool. We're going to make our own patterned paper from our photos. Now to do this, we're going to change the shape to a square. So again, I'm going to go to the Change Template Shape button, click on that in the toolbar, and scroll down to where we have the squares. But here we have our 16 segment square. I'm going to double click on that, and you'll see that we now have a square shape. Again, if you look in the upper right hand corner, you'll notice that we have a square in our thumbnail preview. If we simply click on the preview button, we can see what it looks like. And that's a pretty cool kaleidoscope right there, so I think we're just going to start with this one. Click OK. Now we need to go print our patterned paper. This time we're going to use a custom print option, Print Multiple. and we get a dialog box. In this case, we're going to want to print small kaleidoscopes right next to each other, no margins, and it's going to look like pattern paper when we print it out. So we're going to use a 1.5 inch kaleidoscope, and I'm going to print 15 of those because I want to fill up half of a sheet of paper. Now, I did a little bit of math, so I kind of knew what I was going to do here, but 1.5 inches, if you want to print those across your 8.5 by 11 sheet, you're going to get 5 of those. And I wanted 3 rows of 5. 3 times 5 is 15. You got it. Okay, so we're going to add, and that's all we're going to do is print half of a sheet of pattern paper. You don't want to show any cut lines, and you definitely do not want any margins if you want pattern paper. Click OK. We're going to use photo paper again, and click OK. Now we're going to print a different pattern just to have a little bit of variety on our page. So the first thing we got from the printer is the large kaleidoscope. We're going to cut that out and then turn it over, and we want to draw lines between each of the indentations. You can see I've already drawn some here. I've got one more to draw. So I just line my ruler up by the indentations and draw a line. We're doing that because we want to find the center of the kaleidoscope. I need to cut a hole in the center. If I look over here, it's pretty easy to tell what the center is based on the kaleidoscope image. And if I measure out, I think I want a circle about that big. That's 1.25 inches from the center. I'm going to turn that back over. This rule is really cool because it has a 0 center. I'm going to place that on my center line, measure out 1.25 inches, and do that for each of the lines. Now that I have those tick marks, I can use my favorite circle cutter, center it, and I know how big I want to cut that circle. Here we have one with the circle cut out. We're actually going to use it. We're going to place it back in the center, and we're going to go get the next thing that we printed, which is the kaleidoscope that we printed on the vellum. We're not going to cut that out as a circle. We're just going to cut it out as a square around it. Now we want to take the printed side facing up. We're going to use some removable tape to tape it down. So we've got the tape on there. Now we have to remove that center. So let's put that aside. Don't lose it. We're going to be using it later. And now we're going to cut along the lines in that center. It's pretty easy to do. Just line your ruler up along the lines. Take your cutting tool, and it's going to stop all by itself when you get to the edge of the circle. Okay, now we've got all those cut. We're going to turn it over, take one of these points, and bring it back. Now we want to put in our brads. We're going to bring in our mouse pad and use our needle tool. Just bring it back, punch a hole, and now we can stick a brad through. And we're going to do that for each point. And I've got one with all of them already done. It looks just like this. Now there's one more piece that we need to put on for this element, and that is our journaling on the inside. I chose to print out on transparency. You could just as easily handwrite this on a transparency, but what we do is we turn it over and we just use a little bit of tape, and that's our finished element, number 1. Now we're going to work on our next element. We have one more thing that we printed, and that is our pattern paper. You'll notice that we have 2 patterns on here. That's because when I printed it, we printed the first pattern. I knew it was only going to fill up half the page, and then I took the paper out, put it back in the printer, and printed my second pattern. Okay, now let's cut these apart to make our elements. I'm going to be using this small-based trimmer from Tonic Studios. This is a great trimmer because it really allows you a lot of accuracy when you're able to press down and hold your papers. First, we're just going to cut these 2 patterns apart. Now let's take a look at the pattern on this particular paper. If we were to cut straight elements like this, we would get all of the same pattern. But you'll notice we have some light green here and we have some red. And if I want to get those all in one element, I can choose to cut a diagonal line. And that's a really great tip to know. And you can line up the edge of those red circle kaleidoscopes and just cut a diagonal line, just like that. We're going to move it out, cut another one, and you'll notice that we now have a strip that has all the different elements on it. We need to cut that down to 3 inches, and now we have our element. We're going to do the same thing with this piece. Now I have one more element to cut for the title, and this is a really easy one. There's not going to be a lot of the kaleidoscope showing. I'm just going to cut straight strips for this. All right, so let's put that page together. We have our base paper, and the first thing I want to do is build the photo strip on the left-hand side. I have my photos that I've cut in a 3-inch width that I'm just going to arrange on the side of the paper. Then I'm going to take some paper which I have torn and inked. I've got green paper for the top and the bottom, and then I have some tan paper. And then I take those elements that I just cut, and I'm going to put those in the center right there. I decided to use some fabric for my base mat. I took some more of the brown paper, tore it and inked it. I'm going to put this paper flower right in the center there. So now let's get that main kaleidoscope, and I'm going to attach this with some 3D foam squares by Scrapbook Adhesives from 3L. These are great products to use. It's really easy to take off and put on the back of the kaleidoscope. And now we're just going to peel off the backing. Makes that really easy. And we're going to make sure that our journaling is the right direction and place that right there on the square. Okay, now we're going to make some fiber hearts for these corners. I have some wired fiber that is 5 inches long. I'm simply going to fold that in half so I know where the center is, and then wherever I folded that, I'm going to do a couple twists. That's going to be the point of my heart. I'm going to fold it back in half, and I'm going to use some thread just to wrap around that, tie a knot. I'm going to pull back on the twisted thread, and now you'll see that we have a very cool heart that we can put on our page. We're going to adhere it to the page at both of the points. I have a few others to bring in. And now we're ready to make the title. I cut a dark brown piece of cardstock, another 1 1/4 inch strip. The center of the kaleidoscope, we're going to place that. And now I have taken some journaling, printed it on transparency, some fabric that I used. I stiffened this with fabric stiffener, and you've got a stiff piece of fabric that you can put through any die cut machine and cut your letters out. That's what I've done here. And let's look at the final page. So here we have our fabric element already adhered to the page. I also added a fiber heart to the circle here. We move up, you can see we've got our main kaleidoscope, which looked really complicated at first, but now you know how easy it was. And we have the elements, which exactly match our main photo because it came from that same photo. I've got a couple other pages to show you. This one here, and you can see it's a very simple kaleidoscope. We just added a film strip and a title. You've got a great page. This was my sister's dog. This was like a memorial page for her. I encourage you to try making kaleidoscopes out of your photos, and I'll see you next time.
For step-by-step instructions on how to create this week's project, download the design guide featuring special make-it-your-own bonus tips.